Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff. Today's video is another double header. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this really cool sun catcher using your laser machine and your Cricut machine. In the tutorial for making the sun catcher, I'm going to be showing you some of my best laser tips and tricks for beginners. So if you're just starting out, this is a really wonderful video to get you comfortable working with acrylic. After the tutorial, this video will automatically redirect over to my friend Heidi at Happiness is Homemade, where she is going to be making a very cool project that you must see, and she's also going to be giving you some of her best beginner laser tips. If you're watching this during the premiere, both Heidi and I are over in the chat chatting with you guys, so if you have any questions, please let us know there, and then we'll hop over to Heidi's channel after this and we'll be chatting there as well. So this little sun catcher here is one of those projects that I just sort of came up with on a whim, and I love how it turned out. And I'm really excited to share with you how to make this today. It's basically 2 layers of black acrylic cut here on my Glowforge Aura, and then sandwiched in between is a layer of holographic window cling that I've cut with my Cricut. This is actually a pretty easy project to make, so let's take a look at what we're going to need. To start, you're going to need some kind of laser. Now, most lasers, diode lasers, CO2 lasers, should be able to cut black acrylic. But my first beginner laser tip is to know that not all diode lasers can cut all acrylics. If you have a diode laser, like the Glowforge Aura or the xTool M1 or another diode laser, you need to know its limitations. The laser itself is much less powerful than something like a big laser, like a Glowforge Pro or an xTool P2. Those bigger machines have a much more powerful laser. Now, let me just tell you this in numbers. So my Glowforge Pro is a 45 watt laser. My Glowforge Aura is a 5 watt laser. So this is a much slower and less powerful laser. And that means that it struggles to cut some materials. One of the things it struggles to cut is acrylic. You can cut some acrylic on a diode laser, it's just limited. So for this, I have cut Glowforge's Eco Thin black acrylic. Now this is something that they have tested in their Glowforge Aura, and it cuts beautifully. They also have a few other colors. They've got green, purple, red. There's actually like a teal color that all have the settings dialed in to be able to cut it on this machine. However, if you want to cut clear or other light colors, white, a lot of the colors of blue, some light pinks, this is probably not the laser for you. So if you have a diode laser, just know you're not going to be able to cut every color of acrylic. You are going to be a little bit limited. But for this project, we are using that black Eco Thin acrylic. Totally can be cut on this Glowforge Aura. I bet it can be cut on that xTool M1, no problem, if that's the machine you have. And it can also be cut on the larger machines. I cut this project both on my Aura and on my Glowforge Pro. And when we come to cutting it, and we'll see how long it's going to take in this machine, I'm going to tell you how long it took in my Glowforge Pro, and you can really see the difference between the 2 types of lasers there with the time. So this is the Glowforge Eco Thin black acrylic, and you can see that it has a mask on it. So a mask, if you're a beginner, is basically a paper coating that keeps your material from charring. Now, if you buy any Glowforge proof grade materials, they come pre-masked, which makes them very easy to use. You can buy a lot of other materials online that also come pre-masked. Then you don't have to add your own mask. If your materials come without a mask, you may want to add that mask. I like to use a brayer and some paper transfer tape, and it works really well to prevent charring onto your project. Now, tip number 2A is that you don't always need a mask. There are some materials where you may not find it necessary, especially in a diode laser that just doesn't produce as much power as one of the bigger lasers. So if you have something like a diode laser and you're cutting black acrylic, you may not need to mask this. As always, do tests. I have found that a lot of times I get very minimal charring, and the charring I do get can be cleaned up with a little bit of just some sort of mild detergent. Not always, but sometimes. So if you're working on a project and you want to save yourself the step of having to remove this mask after your project is cut or engraved, then go ahead and do some tests without the mask because you may not need it. Next up is one of my absolute favorite things, and this is called 3M double-sided adhesive. Now, this stuff is amazing because it allows you to assemble your projects without glue. Glue sucks. Let's all just be real. No matter what kind of glue we're using, it can be very messy and imprecise, but using this 3M adhesive is super helpful. So it comes in sheets or in rolls. I'm going to show you how to put this sheet on here in just a minute, but basically we're going to take the mask off, put this adhesive on, and that will allow us to put together the 2 layers of our project without any glue. So love this stuff. It's not the cheapest, but trust me, it will save you 1,000 headaches. You're also going to need your holographic window cling. So this is is really where my project got started. And it's very hard to see, so I'm gonna overlay a video here of it in my bathroom. So I have a bathroom out here in my craft studio and it overlooks the street and I needed some privacy. So I added this holographic window cling to the window in my bathroom, and when the sun sets, that bathroom becomes gorgeous. It's like covered in rainbows. It is beautiful. And I had this huge roll of it after I did the window in the bathroom, and I'm like, well, what else can I make with it? And that's when I got the idea for these sun catchers. So this holographic window cling is very inexpensive. I'm linking to all of these things and this down in the supply list below, but you can go ahead and grab yourself a roll of this, and trust me, when the sunlight comes through your sun catcher, it's rainbows everywhere. It is awesome. Now you can technically cut this window cling by hand with scissors. It's really not that difficult. You can just trace the shape and cut it out and layer it between these two pieces of acrylic, but having a cutting machine makes it so much easier. So you can use basically any cutting machine you want. If you have a Cricut Joy, you may be limited into the size that you can make your sun catcher, but overall, any Cricut will cut this with the fine point blade. Then you're gonna need a way to remove that masking from your acrylic after it's cut. I've got two methods here. One is a weeding hook. This is actually what I'm gonna use for this project. I also have a plastic razor blade. This works really well on engraved projects. You basically just scrape it across your project and it won't damage it because it's just plastic. It's not gonna cut me here. I just scrape it across the top. But with projects like this, where the masking is going to come off in one large piece, I find a weeding hook actually works really well. And then you're gonna need a piece of ribbon, twine, fishing line, whatever, just something to be able to hang your sun catcher by the little hole at the top. Before we go over to the Glowforge app to set up our file, let's go ahead and add this double-sided adhesive to our acrylic here. So I always choose the side that doesn't have the QR code if I'm using a proof-grade material. And then you just want to use your weeding hook just to pull up that corner. You can use your fingernails too, but I found the weeding hook works really well. Now this isn't the easiest to remove. It does tend to tear a little bit. So just go a little bit slowly and you can remove the whole thing. Now we can add our adhesive. These masking sheets have the actual adhesive on the printed side. So if I flip it over, I can take off the backing sheet just like this. Now I don't want to take off the whole backing sheet at once because that will make it a little bit more difficult to apply. So I'm just going to reveal, an inch of it or so here at the top. I'm going to flip it over here and just apply it like this and then smooth down just that edge. Now go back underneath and you can slowly pull off the backing paper while applying your adhesive here to the acrylic. You can use that brayer if you think it would help. If you do end up with bubbles or wrinkles, don't worry about it. You can use a brayer to help smooth those out. If you do get really big wrinkles, honestly, it's not a problem. I've put this project together with a very wrinkled piece of adhesive. I think it's easier when they're not wrinkled, but don't worry if you don't get this on perfectly flat. Now I'm just gonna place this in my Glowforge Aura here in the center, just like this. Now my Glowforge Aura is going to take a picture of that material and I'm going to pop over to the Glowforge app so we can design our file. Before we get into cutting our specific project, I wanted to talk about test cuts. And this is tip number 3 for beginners, is if you're working with material you've never worked with before or you're not quite sure how it's going to cut, always do a test cut. One of the things I actually learned from the folks at Cricut is that a great test cut is a capital letter R in a serif font. So a serif font has those little extra feet and tails and things. That gives you curves, it gives you diagonal lines, it gives you straight lines, it gives you tiny cuts, it gives you all the things you need to know to test a type of material really well when you're going to cut it. Yes, you could cut, a small star or a circle, but a letter R is really going to show you just how well the laser is going to work on your material. Now we're going to see that this project cuts pretty slowly and takes half of this sheet of material. Now, if you want to make sure that it's going to cut thoroughly, I would do that test. So just use the Glowforge text tool to add a capital letter R and test the material. This is the best way to make sure that you're going to get an accurate cut, that you're not going to be disappointed when you go to pull everything out of the laser and it hasn't cut through all the way. This is the Glowforge app. If you're sort of new to it, it's a very, very basic software, but it does do what you need it to do. So you can see here already that the app has read that this is Eco Thin Black Acrylic up here in the top left. That means we don't have to worry about setting any of our settings. It's already done. This is why I think using proof-grade materials is such a good idea for beginners. Now let's upload our file. So I'm gonna go here to the plus and I'm going to go to upload. Then I'm gonna navigate to my file. Now the file I'm giving you has 4 different designs and they all work the same way. But for this project, we're just going to use this one in the top left. So I'm going to go ahead and delete each of the other Suncatchers here. The first thing we want to do is resize our image. So I'm going to go down here to the little ruler, and I'm going to choose 6 inches tall. You can choose whatever size you'd like. You just want to make sure that you are keeping that size in mind when we go to cut the holographic window cling on the Cricut. You just want to make sure you're cutting those at the same size. So before you rotate or do anything else here, set your size. Now I'm going to rotate it so it fits on my material a little better here. You just don't want to be wasting as much, material if you can help it. Now we want to duplicate this. Because this frame goes on both sides of the window cling, we need one right facing and one wrong facing. So we're going to copy and paste. And then for this one here, we're going to flip it. You can flip it horizontally or vertically. They actually both work. And then we're going to try and fit this here just a little bit better to see if we can just not waste quite so much material with these sort of oddly shaped cuts here, just like that. Now the last thing we need to do is you'll see over here on the left that it's set to engrave. We definitely don't want to engrave these two pieces. We want to cut them, so change them to cuts. Now we are ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit print up here in the upper right, and it's going to prepare my print. All right, our magic time to cut here is 42 minutes and 29 seconds, which is not particularly fast, but it will do it in that time. Now for comparison, when I went to cut this exact same file on my Glowforge Pro, it was 4 minutes and 30 seconds. A tenth of the time, so much faster. That being said, that CO2 laser is thousands of dollars more expensive than this one. So this is a much better entry-level laser. Just know that you're going to be cutting things a lot more slowly than you would with a big laser. All right, the laser cut our file, and you'll notice on one side we still have that paper masking, and on the other side we have that double-sided adhesive. Now, removing masking like this, you can use your fingernail, but like I said, I really like a weeding hook just to get these smaller pieces started, just like that. Just be careful not to scratch your acrylic, but if you just go kind of gently, you're not going to. And then you can peel back all of that masking, just like this. Make sure that you're not peeling back that adhesive layer. You can see the little 3M logo all over it. You don't want to pull that one up yet. Now let's pop over and do the Cricut portion of this project. All right, here I am in Cricut Design Space, and I'm just going to go ahead and upload the file. I've already uploaded this file, so I'm going to add it to my canvas. And again, this file has all 4 of these window clings for you to use, but I'm going to delete the 3 here that I'm not going to use. Now this is the important part where we need to remember what size we made our file over in the Glowforge app so that we can make it the same size here in Cricut Design Space. So I'm going to go ahead and make that 6 inches high. And we don't want to cut out all of these different facets of the crystals here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the contour button, and I'm going to hide all of the contours, which means that only the outside will cut. And then I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to unhide the little hole because we want to be able to put our ribbon or string or whatever through that hole, so I'm actually going to unhide that hole. Now you can see here that I have my file. It does have that hole cut out at the top, but none of the facets are showing. This is the shape of our holographic window cling, and we're ready to make it. Here I'm going to choose on matte, and I'm going to choose that 12 by 12 inch size. I'm going to rotate it here just a little bit like I did in the Glowforge app, just to try and save myself a little bit of space, just like that. Click continue. Then it's going to connect to my Maker 3. Like I said, you can use any Cricut you want. I'm going to browse all materials here, and I'm going to choose gel sheets. I think this is probably a little bit of an overkill, but I found that it cut this really well, so I'm just going to go with it. All right, I have my holographic window cling. I have cut this both face up and face down, and it's not been a problem. I'm going to go ahead and just place it on my mat here. And again, you want it to be pretty smooth, so we're going to do this. And if you're finding that it's not sticking well, that brayer can help. It's one of my favorite tools in my craft room, so you can go ahead and use it to press down your material into your mat. All right, time to load our mat and go ahead and cut this part of our project. To remove any material from my Cricut mat, flipping my mat over like this. I'm just going to pull off the piece we need. I'll remove all of this from my mat later. But now we have our window cling. And you're probably thinking, oh, it's like a little opaque. It's not very shiny. When I hold it up to the light, nothing comes through. And that's because there is actually a coating on here. So I'm going to peel back that coating And you can see here in the overhead view that one side has the coating and then the other side has the actual window cling, and it's much more clear and beautiful than it is with this coating on it, so peel that off. All right, we have all the pieces we need to make our project. So like I said, tip number 4 is using this weeding hook. It works just as well on this, this backing material, so you can use it to just peel that up. And then carefully peel up the backing liner on this 3M adhesive. It comes up even more easily than the masking, but now you can see here, I don't know if you can see it in the overhead, but this is sticky. So we now have that adhesive on the back of our frame here. Now, can you imagine trying to glue this? All of these little pieces, the glue would be seeping out. It would not be cute, but because we use that 3M adhesive, we can easily assemble this with this piece here. So we want to line it up here, just perfectly on the backing piece. Now, this can be a little tricky, so you just need to go slow, make sure you're putting things in the right place. I have found that lining up the hole is the easiest, and if for some reason it's not working for you, you can trim off pieces of this liner if you need to afterward. All right, and I don't know if you can see here in the overhead view, but I actually have like a little bit extra here around the frame. I just didn't get it centered as well as I should have. So I'm gonna pop over to the other part of my craft room really fast and just trim off this excess with a craft knife. All right, trimming off that excess with a craft knife is much easier before you put that second piece on. So if you're noticing that you didn't quite get it on there perfectly, trimming it before you put that second piece on is the way to go. But now we can add our second piece. So let's use the weeding tool here, pull up all of that liner, exposing that adhesive just like that. And we're just gonna sandwich it here on the top. I find the second one a little bit easier because you can kind of just use your fingers to line it up, just feeling where it goes, just like that, and press. Now before we add our ribbon, I want to talk about my last and final tip for working with acrylic. And that is that sometimes the edges of acrylic can feel like there's a residue on there. They almost feel tacky or sticky, and I don't know what that is about the laser cutting process, but it can be kind of annoying, and especially if you're like making something to sell, it doesn't feel particularly professional. So you need to clean that up. There are so many mild cleaners that you can use to do that. My favorite is baby wipes. So I'm just gonna grab a baby wipe. And you want baby wipes that are not just only water. You don't want alcohol, you just want like a mild cleaner. So I'm gonna go ahead and just wipe down all of the edges here. And it just will help clean up that residue that sometimes exists on acrylic. It also does it on wood as well. Now you heard me say not to use alcohol, and that is important. A lot of people want to jump to using alcohol and a microfiber cloth when working with acrylic, but alcohol can cause these sort of micro fissures inside acrylic, making it less strong and also ugly. It's not quite as important on black, you won't be able to see it quite as well, but if you're working with a lighter color, you'll notice that if you use acrylic, it may just have these like very, very tiny cracks in it. Not cute. So definitely use a mild detergent, but not alcohol. Another cleaning tool I see a lot of people want to use is a magic eraser. I use magic eraser all the time on cleaning up charring on wood, cleaning up the edges of wood and that sort of thing. The magic clean eraser actually has an abrasive surface. Even though it's kind of soft and fluffy, it does have an abrasive surface and it can scratch your acrylic. So you definitely don't want to use a magic eraser or alcohol on acrylic. Stick to something mild. So baby wipes, Windex, the LA's awesome spray that you can get at the dollar store also works really well. I find that baby wipes kind of work the best for projects like this where I need to like work my way around the edge, but I use Windex for everything as well. So either of those will work. Just make sure that you're using something mild. All right, we're almost done. I'm just gonna thread my ribbon here through the hole and make a little knot. Again, you can use whatever you would like to hang this. I just have some black ribbon here, but you can use fishing line. You can also use one of those little suction cup hooks and just put it straight in. I personally like to hang it from a string instead of a suction cup hook because I do like the fact that it sort of just waves a little bit and sends those rainbows everywhere. It's really pretty. All right, I hope you enjoyed this project. I know it's kind of a strange one. It's not something that everybody wants to make, but they're amazing, so you should make them. I hope you found my 5 tips for crafting with acrylic with a laser really helpful. If you found them helpful, let me know down in the comments. Again, this video is going to redirect to my friend Heidi at Happiness is Homemade. She has a video with some other beginner laser tips that you're definitely going to want to watch, so stick around for that. If you want more content around using a laser cutter, a Cricut cutter, or a sublimation printer, which I didn't even cover in this video, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.